Within the Hebrew Bible text, there are some symbols that indicate divisions in the text and accents which serve a number of purposes in giving you clues about the Hebrew. Now, the marker at the end of each verse looks like a colon, only with diamond shapes, and this is called a sof pasuk. Even if you had a text without verse numbering, you would be able to tell that this is the end of a verse. There are also paragraph markers, or at least section markers. There are two of these. One is an open paragraph marker, and it marks a larger break. It is represented by a pei. It's called a putucha. The closed paragraph marks a smaller section, the setuma, and it is represented by a samech. Now, these words open and closed have to do with the way that the text used to be laid out in manuscripts. You will not find this necessarily in accordance. You will just find the pei or the samech, and immediately it goes on to the next verse. You can read more about this in Walker-Jones. Here are examples you see at the end of each verse, the sof pasuk. Here's an example of a petucha and a setuma, and it's marking off a section. So this is giving you a clue as to how the Masoretes divided up the text. They would not, of course, have had verse numbers in the Middle Ages. Now, in addition to the little vowel points that you will see above and below the consonants in Hebrew, you'll see a lot of other little symbols. And these are accents. And they have three functions. They mark which syllable is stressed or accented. And this can be helpful when you are reading aloud. Most of the time, the syllable on which you see the accent is the one that takes the stress. There are some exceptions. Don't really worry about it right now. These symbols are also cantillation or musical notations. So a cantor in a synagogue follows these marks when they are chanting the Bible. They don't speak it out loud, they chant it using musical notations. We are using one particular system. There are about 3 major systems used in different parts of the world. The accents also mark meaningful divisions in each verse. It's a little bit like punctuation, but there's no direct correlation between any given accent and a particular punctuation mark in English. So, in what they call the 21 books, these are the books of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, except for Job, Psalms, and Proverbs. And these are some major disjunctive accents. In other words, they mark a pause or the end of a series of words. The siluk is, you'll see at the end of the verse, it will always fall on the accented syllable of the last word before the sof pasuk, and nowhere else in the verse. There's something that looks like it called a meteg, which has a different purpose. Then there is the Ahtna. It kind of looks like an upside down V, as here. This is usually indicates the major division in a verse. One of them, it marks off 2 parts of the verse. Then you have the zakef gaton and zakef gadol. You see one is 2 dots, one is 2 dots with a line. Both of them act pretty much the same. They act as subdivisions within a verse. They are different because they represent a different musical notation. This tifcha, which is either a curvy line, kind of like a backslash, or sometimes, depending on the font, it actually looks like a backslash. And then the segolta, which you see is usually after the last letter of the consonant, and it's a little pyramid of dots. Job, Psalms, and Proverbs uses a slightly different system of accents. It does use the suluch at the end of the verse, but most often, except perhaps in shorter verses, this ole v'yored marks the halfway point, or the end of the first section within a verse. And you can see this actually has 2 markers, okay, one above and one below, as here. The Ahtna, which we've already looked at, can also be used either to mark off half of, the major half of the verse, or sometimes if there is the ole v'yored, it is used to mark off a subsection, which is also what the revia usually does, this little diamond shape above the line. And the tzinor, which is this little squiggly line, okay? And it usually occurs slightly to the left of the last consonant of the verse, of the word. Note that it is not represented correctly in Walker-Jones. You do not have to necessarily memorize all of them, but be aware of them. And if you are doing a close analysis, or if you're confused about how the words go together, this can be a good indicator. Modern scholars don't always absolutely agree, but it is something to consider when you are doing an analysis or a translation of a Hebrew selection. There are also some what they call conjunctive accents. These accents sort of point towards the fact that there's another essential word in the phrase or clause to follow. And you'll notice it's kind of interesting. A lot of them kind of point to the left, which means, they're kind of pointing, towards the next word as being part of the same sequence. And just also be aware of these: the munach, the mehupach, the meracha, the darga, asla, ilui. You can see them here. Most of the time in Hebrew, the stress is going to be on the final syllable, but there are exceptions. You can see all these examples of the conjunctive accents. Now, of these 6, this one is not used in Job, Psalms, and Proverbs. The darga, again, is only used in the 21 books, and the ilui is only used in Job, Psalms, and Proverbs. So how might this knowledge of the accents help us in our analysis or translation of a text? What I've done is gone through and highlighted in blue words with some of the major disjunctive accents. These signal that the unit, whether it's a phrase or a clause, has some kind of pause, some kind of end to it. So if we go and we read through it, we can do these groupings. So the Lord said, I have seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. And at this point, we have reached an Ahtna, which basically divides this verse into two. And their cries I have heard because of his oppressors. For I know his pains. Conversely, there are places where we have a construct chain where there is one of the conjunctive accents, like from this word to this word, and that's a clue that those two go together. They're very closely related. Okay. Same here. Here's one of our conjunctive accents, and again, you have kind of a construct chain here. So all of these can help us in translation and in analysis. When we go here to Psalm 1:1, we notice that some of the really major accents that we've noted sort of help break up the verse into meaningful units that we will later learn as parallelism. So we have this kind of introduction. Happy is the man, okay, with a revia that says, okay, there's a pause there. And then each of the three parts of the verse, it is signaled at the end by one of these major accents. So, for example, here, who does not go according to the advice of the wicked. And we have here the ole v'yored. And in the way of the wicked, he does not stand, and we have a not nach. And in the assembly of the scoffer, he does not sit, and this we have the saluk. Okay, so those disjunctive accents mark off the major units. And then here we have a conjunctive accent pointing to the fact that this lo goes with halach. Okay, these are very closely related words. Or here, the assembly of the construct chain is indicated by the conjunctive accents. So just be aware of these, and they can help you in figuring out which words go together in your translations.